Hello, and welcome to episode 49 of the Destiny Truthcast. I'm Red Wing Girl, and I'm here today with my co-host, Lost Souls. How are you doing, Souls?
Hey, Red Wing Girl, I'm doing well. It's good to hear your voice here now that we're back home. Got to spend a little time together out on the West Coast, so that was very nice, and it's good being here together doing another episode of the Destiny Truthcast. No, we put out the little mini episode early this morning, but it's been 2 weeks since our last full episode.
Yeah, we had a lot of entertainment in the last few days over in LA, and so we're going to have a little special episode this week to discuss our experience at the D2 event. What was your thoughts on the overall experience, and where do you want to start?
Well, it was. It's hard to imagine 3 years ago when I picked up Destiny and put the disc in and played the game. I don't know that there was any way to fathom that when the Destiny 2 gameplay premiere happened, that we would be sitting there in LA, and it was just the most unbelievable experience. And I hope that we are able to over the course of this podcast just relate that experience to the listeners, everyone on bnet, and everyone that watches the podcast and listens, because I think we had probably one of the most unique experiences of anyone that went out there, and it was pretty unbelievable. What about you?
Yeah, so I, the initial beginning of this all was the lead up to it, which was a lot of Twitter back and forth, the excitement, and then that sort of transitioned into the actual people traveling and then their experience, and my trip was pretty uneventful. I got on the stupid plane and flew out there, and I hate flying. I just don't like it. But you had kind of a unique experience. Why don't you tell everyone what happened with yours?
Well, I had a longer flight. I had a connection in Chicago on the way. I believe yours was just a straight flight, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm just straight out of Seattle, so it was just one way.
Yeah, so I did not go to bed the night before because I had to leave my house at I wanted to leave at 2 in the morning. I ended up leaving at 3 just because I am one of those travelers that's going to forget something. And so I spent an extra hour just walking room to room looking for what I was forgetting. So yeah, I got to the airport. I was actually 25 minutes early for the TSA lines opening, so I ended up being the first in line there, which was nice. Just a short 48-minute flight to Chicago, but I was sitting there, and as you said, one thing from even that early in the morning, the tweets were going out from people that were either on their way already. I know when I was sitting at the airport at 3:30, 4 in the morning, waiting for my flight to Chicago, Hands0meDrag0n was hitting the road from Las Vegas with his family to drive out to the event. So we were tweeting back and forth, which was really cool. And I got to Chicago, and I was tweeting with Justin from the Dad Tales podcast. And he said, "So you're in Chicago?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I am too." I'm like, "Are you at O'Hare?" He's like, "Yeah." And I said, "What gate are you at?" He says, "C16. And I said, "Well, I'm at C10. And I said, "How long till your flight leaves?" He says, 2 hours. I'm like, "Well, I'll walk down and meet you." So I get up, I start getting my stuff together. He says, "You can't miss me. I'm wearing a New Monarchy shirt." And I said, "Well, you can't miss me because I'm wearing an Oryx hoodie." And so I start walking, and we're 200 yards apart, if that, and I see him standing by over one of the little phone charging stations, and he waved, I waved, and there we were, two people that, two Guardians play Destiny that never met, just like tweets back and forth on Twitter, and here we are connected in Chicago. He was out of Philadelphia, I believe, and yeah, there we are, talking Destiny. And so we started talking podcasting and how we do our podcast, how they do theirs. And we're sitting there talking, and someone walks by, and then they kind of stop and they back up and they do a double take and they say, "Are you guys going to the event?" And we're like, "Yeah." Like, "You going?" He's like, "Yeah." And so we met Duncan, who is a longtime player from back in the Halo days. And so there we are, the three of us talking Destiny. And it turned out that Duncan and Justin were on the same flight. And so, yeah, we talked for about 20 minutes or so, and then headed to our gates to wait to take off. But it was really cool. I mean, just the most unbelievable start to the trip, to be there and to run into these people, and just the excitement and just the feeling of community was pretty intense.
Yeah, you're pretty lucky. I didn't see anyone on my flight that was notably from, going to the event or anything, but that didn't mean that there weren't people there. I just didn't really see anyone.
Yeah, and I think that had you gone out a day sooner, I think that's when all the Bungie people went out. And I think you would have undoubtedly a day sooner been on a flight with all kinds of Bungie people on your way.
Yeah, probably. But they went day early to get everything all set up, and so understandably they were there first.
So yeah, my flight ended up being delayed an hour, and then we hit the tarmac and prepped for takeoff, and then we got delayed out on the tarmac for another half an hour. But we got in the air, and I thought I was going to get into LA, even with the delay, 2 hours ahead of you, and I landed, and when my phone was able to get messages once we touched down to you saying you had caught an earlier flight, and I looked it up and it said that you were supposed to be there about 25 minutes later, but I'd say within about 3 minutes of me getting off the plane, you messaged me that you had arrived.
Yeah, I was already outside. I had already gotten off the plane, was outside. I'm like, okay, well, I'm already going down by the ground transportation, so meet me down here. And I'm not familiar with the LA airport, so I'm like, just meet me down at the ground, because the SeaTac airport is not that big. I mean, you can walk the whole length of the ground transportation. I mean, it would take you a while, but, everybody is basically in one, airport. But LA's got 3 different ones, and so you were nowhere near me, so you had to take a shuttle to try to get to where I was at, which was kind of humorous.
Yeah, it was, that took me by surprise too. I was expecting that, I'd get in and just walk down to your terminal or take a shuttle over, Denver International, where the shuttle connects to different terminals. But yeah, it's 7 different terminals, and they're all independent of each other with their own TSA check-ins and whatnot. So I had to figure out how to get to your terminal, and so I asked the attendant. They said, take the escalator down and go get on a blue bus. I said, okay. So I walked down, and I asked another attendant before I went outside. I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to get to Terminal 3. They said, just walk out to the median there and wait for the blue A bus. I said, okay. So I said, right there, out in the median right there. Yes. So I go out there, and I'm standing there. I'm like, this doesn't feel right. So I went and I saw someone security. So I asked them, like, yeah, they told me to wait here for a blue A bus. It's like, no, man, you want to be way down there. So I start walking down, and I see the blue A bus drive by. I'm like, oh, fuck. And they told me it was every 15 minutes. So I got down there, and you're telling me that you're standing waiting for the shuttle to the rental car, and it ended up being, probably 35 minutes before my bus came around again?
Yeah, it was a while before you got there.
But eventually, the A bus did show up, and I got on and went down, I think, three terminals on the other side of the complex. And there you were. And it was pretty amazing. We've been friends for a year, and because of this experience, to get to meet and be there face to face was just something that was pretty incredible, and just something that I'll never forget.
Yeah, it was definitely fun. It was exciting, and I was really happy to meet you. And you finally got over there. I was getting sort of annoyed because the shuttle to the car had left like 5 times, and I'm like, okay, well, let's hope that it shows up again. Well, we finally got to the hotel, or not the hotel, but the car rental place, which happened to be at a hotel, and we were able to get the car and get out of there and get moving. And soon after that, get checked into our room, and we had dinner scheduled with Cosmo, so we ended up going to a restaurant right by the event area and sat down and had dinner with Cosmo. So what was your experience with that?
Well, first of all, what we didn't know was that it's where SpaceX builds their rockets and Tesla has their space stuff there, and there's also a bunch of like airport hangars that they rent out for events, and there's a little restaurant there, Eureka, and so Cosmo, which was really cool, as busy as they were setting up and everything they had going on, and they had a lot going on that day, going through all the rehearsals for the event and whatnot. He took time out of his day to have dinner with us, and so we went and we met him there, and it was what I expected meeting Cosmo to be like, except, everyone talks about how tall Cosmo is, but I think everyone, when they meet him, is still shocked. I mean, he's got to be, at least like 6'7"?
I have no idea. I had heels on, so I didn't really think he was that tall. But then the next day, I didn't, and he seemed tall. So, I don't know, he's over 6 foot something. He's pretty tall.
Yeah, so, what did you think about meeting good old Cos for the first time?
Well, he's exactly like he is when you see him in any video. He's really, I don't want to use the old-fashioned term jolly, but he's really like
affable,
goofy. Yeah, he's really happy and easygoing and easy to talk to and very responsive, and he's just down to earth, kind of really nice person. I mean, you could tell he's really genuinely a nice person, which I think we all kind of figured he would be, but he really was. He was really just, he was very excited. He had said that they had been rehearsing all night and setting up, and everyone was very anxious and excited, and he seemed pretty ramped up, and he really wanted to kind of talk about that kind of stuff and the impact on him and his Bungie team, and you could just tell that he was really excited.
Well, and the other thing, we talked to him just a little about how he ended up starting the Destiny subreddit and how that came about, and that it was really cool. I had no idea. I know you didn't either. He told us that he was in a clan with DeeJ back in the day. Before DeeJ was at Bungie, they were clanmates, and I did not know that. And I thought that was pretty cool. And he told us how, when DeeJ went to Bungie, Cosmo talked to him about wanting to start a forum community on Reddit, and DeeJ was like really supportive of that and told him he should do it. And I just I didn't know that they had that history, and it was a level of friendship and closeness between the two that was pretty cool to see. And I don't know how to really, like I said, it just I thought that was pretty awesome hearing those stories.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure for both of them it made working together, now and in the beginning easier because they were both, they knew each other before, so it just sort of made sense. He was doing community management there, and later on we can talk about our discussions with DeeJ, but as DeeJ told us, he needed help. He was doing a lot of stuff that was taking his time away from bnet, and he really needed someone to take over that part of it, and then the Reddit, and then all of the other things that he needs to do. And so it just seemed like a perfect opportunity to bring Cozmo on board to do some of that other stuff that DeeJ just couldn't get to. So we were hearing that from Cozmo, and then later on we heard that from DeeJ. So it just seemed like a really good match. A lot of trust and appreciation and respect for each other was really evident.
Yeah. And then so we're sitting there and we're talking about this, and
well, before that happened, so the whole time you were sitting there, I kept asking Cozmo questions like, so is there going to be big team? Is there going to be matchmaking? And I was throwing all this stuff at him, and he kept saying, well, I don't know. We'll just have to see what happens tomorrow. I don't know. We'll just have to see. Well, I don't know. We'll just have to see. So I was trying to read his responses and try to get something out of him, because he just was
gauging
not,
that body language.
Yeah, he was not giving it up. But you could sort of tell that he just wanted to blast out all the details. But he just, you could tell that he also knew he'd better not, and he didn't. He was just. He was engaging, but he just wasn't going to give up the details, not before the reveal.
Yeah, and so, which then we're sitting there, and a gentleman walks up and says, "Hey, Cozmo," and Cozmo says, "Oh, hey, what's going on?" And Cozmo tells us, "Hey, this is Lost Souls and Red Wing Girl. They do a bnet community podcast," and he says, "This is Pete Parsons." And so he introduced us to the CEO of Bungie, Pete Parsons, and Pete says, "Yeah, I saw you over here. I was just texting DeeJ that you're over here giving away state secrets." And we all laughed, and then he holds up his phone and shows us a text to DeeJ, "Hey, Cosmo's over here giving away state secrets."
Yeah.
And so then he sat down, and we're having dinner there with Cozmo, and next thing you know, Pete Parsons is sitting there with us, and we're having dinner and drinks with Cozmo and Pete, and we're there for about 45 minutes talking to him, and it was the most it was the most unexpected thing, I think, of the entire trip. And we'll get into how everyone at Bungie were just so gracious and so welcoming. But I mean, the way that Pete interacted with us was like we'd known him for years. He was just as open, as friendly, as gracious. Listened intently, wanted to discuss the game, and we can get into a little of that. But like I said, I don't know what I would have pictured and what I would have expected of him, but over the course of the last 2 years, I think there's been a huge shift, and we've commented a lot in Bungie and in the community, and just kind of the way that there's that reconnection, and it became apparent talking to Pete that I think that's where it starts, at the top. But what was your take of meeting Pete when he came over?
Well, I mean, if you work in the corporate world, or if you work in any kind of business, I suppose, you really get your sense of work environment from your superiors, and it was really evident that the positive attitude, the excitement, the exuberance, the anything that you can say that's positive in a work environment was driven from him. He's very positive, and I mean, you could just tell that he really kind of pushes that kind of work I'm at a loss for words. I don't really know how to describe it, but I think you probably understand what I mean. Like, if you're working with a really grumpy boss all the time, you tend to it's horrible, even if you like what you're doing, going in every day and having to deal with that. But you can tell from him that, he's very engaged just by what he's told us. He's engaged and he's interested in what everyone in his company is doing. And you just get a sense that he really does. It really does start with him, and he was just as a person, he was down to earth. He was very easily, easy to talk to, and he listened intently to things that we had said, and he was really ultimately, what we ended up getting from him was that all of the discussion over the last few years and leading up to D2 was the central focus of where they wanted Destiny to go was the community. And he stressed it on every single level, not only within the game, but outside of the game, and how they had gotten the feedback from everyone, everywhere. And that was really an important feature for him personally, with him and his family, and how he plays the game with himself and his son, and with everyone else, all of his friends, and so you could just tell, and that was sort of like the root of our discussion was the community and how they really wanted it to be a really strong game surrounding the community. It was really evident.
Yeah. And so, Cosmo told us that Pete goes to his desk, all throughout the week. He'll stop by his desk and he'll ask him what's going on in the bnet community. What are people talking about? What are we saying on the forums? And I know you and I know this, and I know that there's a lot of backlash at Cosmo sometimes from his telling people he's going to take things to the devs, because that's what he's allowed to tell people. He's not allowed to he's not going to give out what Bungie's going to do to a certain request or whatnot. But what people don't understand is that when Cosmo was on the forums and he's telling us that he's going to take the things that we post and the things that we're concerned about, the things we care about, to the devs, he's taking these posts on the bnet forums and he's taking them to the devs that might be a PvP designer, someone that might oversee PvE or UI design, and he's taking these posts to these devs and these discussions and ideas. But what was really unbelievable was that not just that, but all throughout the week, these posts that we're putting up on bnet, he's sharing with Pete Parsons, the CEO of the company. And we've said we know that our feedback matters on bnet, and I know that people, people think that bnet doesn't have the voice, that it's Reddit or it's YouTube or it's streamers. But when we as a community post constructive things and we support each other and stand behind each other and we are passionate about things, when these posts go up and trend, they're not just being seen by Cosmo, and it's not just a stock answer. These things are being seen by everyone at Bungie, from the people that design and create the game to the person at the top that makes the ultimate decisions. And I thought that was just such a cool thing to hear from them, and just it was just really really neat.
Yeah, and I mean, it wasn't like we were putting ourselves out there like, so do you look at the bnet community, or do you look at any of the feedback or the Destiny feedback, or it was, they volunteered it, so they brought it up, not really us. And I just kind of feel like it's not just bnet. We know that they look at Reddit because Reddit's purpose is to kind of whittle down the nonsense to get to the point, and so it's a lot easier for them to look at Reddit for some of the more specific content. I'll put it out there like that. I know there's a lot of, they don't allow people just to post whatever they want like they do on bnet, but, the point is that there's discussions everywhere. There's Reddit, there's bnet, there's, content creators. Everyone has an opinion, and it's Cosmo's job to sort of kind of pull all that together, give it to the right departments of who it matters. And his discussion with Pete Parsons is probably just basically an overall discussion about the mood of the community and what are most of the things that people are saying, and it's his job to sort of kind of give him an update of what's actually being said. And so we kind of saw that in action. We saw it. We had the idea that that's actually how it worked, but then we got confirmation basically from Pete Parsons that that's actually kind of what happened. So that was really interesting, and it was good to hear.
Yeah, and then so we were just talking Destiny and the experience, and we started talking with him about something that we've discussed a lot here, is that one of the most underrated things about Destiny 1 and the experience that has been Destiny 1 is its ability to connect people, and how we were sitting there, how you and I had met playing Destiny, and there we were at the table with him in LA, meeting in person because of this game, and how the game has the ability to connect families where siblings that live apart, families with a loved one serving overseas in the military, or any form of long distance relationship, people that have just met from other countries and become friends. It just has this really unique ability to connect. And we talked to him about the social spaces in Destiny, the Tower, the Reef, the Felwinter's Peak, and how that kind of sets Destiny apart from other games, in that you're not just running a strike and then that's it, you queue for another event. You've got these areas where then you can just go as your character and hang out. We discussed that, and kind of a bit of the matchmaking, and how like things like the raid, and how we hope to see ways to in the game to connect people, and through in-game matchmaking, LFG or whatnot. And at that point, Pete said that there's been a lot of wonderful things that people have created throughout Destiny. There were things that they wanted in the game, things that they weren't able to put in the game, but that this community, found ways to help them out with. And he said that there were things that people would continue to be able to use, but they were they wanted to, I guess, I can't remember exactly how I worded it, but things that they wanted to put in the game. And at that point, we looked at each other and we thought, oh, we're going to get matchmaking tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of elaborated on that a little bit. I mean, we kind of knew where, as soon as he sort of talked about the community, I mean, he was really focused on how much the community has meant to Bungie overall, and how important that they realized, the discrepancy on some people's inability to sort of, hook up and get a fire team, and sort of that kind of aspect. But he also sort of talked about, one specific story he talked about his 8-year-old son, and how his son was a better gamer than him, but that he was still able to play with him, and how many hours that he's actually played the game, and that he's never played a game more. And so then you sort of got a sense of, he's sort of wrapped up in what most people that play Destiny is as well. We're wrapped up in playing with our friends and our family, and, there's a lot of activities that, lowest skill player can still enjoy with the highest skill player. You know, it's sort of a balanced game that everyone can come together and enjoy. And you could tell by his own personal experience that, you know, that was a pretty big deal for him. And, you know, being able to play with the son and you know, et cetera. So that was sort of a sort of central to our discussion about, you know, the community. That's kind of how we walked away from it, was that was a strong point. And it was really interesting talking to him. I mean, we talked about a lot of different little things, and I can't recall every discussion. You know, I remember saying a few things to him about the feeling of, you know, because he's an older gamer like I am, and, you know, back in the day when I used to go to an arcade, you know, we all kind of met at the arcade. Well, that to me is like the tower, you know, and then you play all the individual games and your friends and, you know, whatever. And it's sort of kind of the similar thing, you know, but it's just, you know, people are online and they're meeting over miles as opposed to being in one arcade, for example. And so it was interesting to talk to him and get his perspective on things, but I walked away from it with the feeling that they were very humbled that there are so many people that since Destiny came out that have been involved in the game and that have done so much for the game and in the game. And he just seemed really happy, and, you know, rightfully so. I mean, for what it's worth, Destiny is a pretty big success. I mean, there's always things to complain about. There's always things that you want. But I think for the most part, they listened to a lot of feedback, and he talked a little bit about that and how they wanted to make those changes in the game with us.
Yeah, and to that end, like I said, it was very, very evident how much the Destiny community as a whole, be it from wherever we come from, mean to them at the studio. And not just that, but how excited he was for what we were going to see the next day. That really came through, and how much he couldn't wait to get to show this to the community. And just like you said, him talking about how he plays with his son and experiences the things we experience. It was just something really extraordinary, and it was a pretty incredible experience.
Well, it's not unlike anything else that we don't talk about with every other person that we meet. Like, you know, what is it that you like about Destiny, and what, you know, it's the same story, and not only does it happen within the community, but it happens to him, you know. So we kind of all get the same thing out of it.
Yeah. So then we finished up dinner and headed out, and we were getting ready to pull away in the car, and Eagle Eyes Red Wing Girl, because Souls is blind and oblivious, noticed something.
Yeah. So we noticed Pete Parsons walking with DeeJ, and I'm like, oh my God, there's DeeJ.
and so I think you might have even been pulled off a little from the curb, and Souls hopped out the door and said, oh my God, we have to go meet DeeJ.
And I was like, no, don't go over there. Don't. He's got a tuxedo, or he's got some kind of suit or something. I don't know. Don't go over there.
and Souls bolted out the door.
And with horror and shock, DeeJ was like, "Who's this goofball that walking up to me?" And I'm sure it's. And then the all of the blood rushed from his face as he said, "Hi, I'm Lost Souls." And DeeJ just looked at him like, "Oh no."
No, DeeJ was as gracious as could be. I did say, I said, DeeJ, what's up? And he's like, hey. And I said, Lost Souls. And then he got the look of recognition. And so we went over and we said hi to him. And you know, he was obviously on his way from one stage of the planning to something else, and he apologized for not having time, but he said that he would find us at the event the next day. But yeah, that was pretty cool to go from dinner with Cosmo to Pete Parsons walking up and sitting down with us to walking out and seeing DeeJ in a parking lot, and it really was a surreal experience and day.
Yeah, it definitely was. For our first day, we hadn't even been in there for a couple 3 hours, and already.
So the next day, we got up early in the morning. We had to be at the buses at like 8 a.m. So we got to the shuttles and boarded a bus, and I think we got to the venue at about 8:15 or so.
Yeah, about 8:15, 8:30.
Yeah, so we got there. They lined us up to get our credentials. As we sat in that line, Cosmo was there walking through all the lines, meeting every single person that was there going in. He was greeting them, which was pretty cool. We messaged Hands0meDrag0n and Mercules, and ended up, after we got our credentials and we were standing, they had a little table with like bagels and donuts, drinks for people. As we waited, we met up with Hands0meDrag0n, and we said, "Is Anon Pig coming?" And he says, "He's standing right here." And we were standing next to Anon, so we met him, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was definitely pretty funny, because he's the one that was giving us the tweet of the trip kind of thing. It was kind of funny.
Yeah. So then Justin from Dad Tales got there. Mercules didn't get there until after we got in. But so at I think 9, they opened up the little thing to let us into the actual venue, and I think that was I think one of your favorite experiences of the day.
Yeah, so it was kind of funny. So, they had the whole how like you're waiting in line for like the airport, you're zigzag, and everybody has their passes, and of course I had to make a point that my pass had said Titan on it, of course, and everybody because it was the password for Wi-Fi. So it was kind of funny because, of course, I'm a Titan main, so I had to point out that, of course, it's going to be a Titan thing.
Yes, the password for the event Wi-Fi was Titans, so the Titans had their moment in the sun in their day.
That's right. So anyway, so as we're going through the lines, we're walking down like a long kind of red carpet kind of entryway into the facility, and everybody and their mother had their phone over their head taping the entrance going into the actual entrance, which was hilarious. I took a picture of it, and like everyone had their phone over their head taking a picture of this. So it was really funny for me, because I'm like, look at all these fools with their cameras up. I mean, oh my God, they're not even going to look at it. But it was pretty cool. They had, big giant Destiny 2 posters and everything, like as you were walking in, and once we got in there, it was like really cool looking. They had a hunter, a titan, and a warlock kind of statue, like kind of like sort of in a round. Life. Yeah, full life
size.
And, yeah, life size, and a bunch of Destiny things and or posters, and not posters. They were like big silk screen, like giant, I don't know what you call them, but they were like everywhere, and then we walked into a huge arena, and then there was a big screen and a stage and more food and drinks and water and and
3 giant television cameras.
Yeah. And I don't, Cosmo had told us the night before that they had 700 to 800 people who RSVP'd or that were coming from all over the world, and I'm really terrible at estimating how many people were actually there, but it was really close to that number. I mean, there were hundreds of people there. It was way more people than I thought that was actually going to be there.
Yeah, it was. I'd say every bit the 700 to 800, and there's all the talk that it was just the big name streamers and the YouTubers. And Cosmo had told us that there were people coming in from all over the world that they were inviting into this event. And I know that we saw We saw a few. Did you see anyone as we were walking in, names or faces that you had recognized from YouTube or from streams?
Well, here's the thing. So I really don't watch streamers. I mean, I know it's popular, and I feel bad for saying it, I guess, because I know that there's a lot of people in the Bungie community that have had a, good effect and a positive effect within the rest of the community who watch them. But I've only really watched one streamer, and the rest I sort of knew about, but I didn't really recognize anybody. I knew there were people there, and people had pointed out to me who they were, and I recognized their name, and I know Mercules and a few other people because, we've had them on the podcast, so I knew who they were, but I didn't know, like, some of the bigger names, because I just, I actually play the game. I don't have time to watch Twitch, and so... Yeah. I'm not into that thing, but that doesn't mean that they're not important, and that and I know they were there because there were people that were talking about them being there and whatever. So we did know that there was a mix of, a lot of different content creators there, but there were also people, like us there, and just regular people who play the game.
Yeah, I think we saw Shifty or whatever, Shifty5, then walking in. And then when we got in, I went over and we saw Briar Rabbit and Tefty Teft. And so I went over, introduced myself and said hello to them, looked for Pope, but Pope wasn't there. And then that's when we got a hold of Mercules. And so I guess, first of all, do you want to talk about our seats that we had there?
Yeah, we had really great seats. We were like 5th row in the front. We saw everything. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Because we were like early, and we had we walked in with, some of the first people that were there. I mean, there was probably like maybe 100 people before us, but it was like a small auditorium, so there was plenty of seats. So we had some pretty good seats.
Yeah, and what I thought was interesting was also, everyone had different colored badges, and, we had these red badges, and we had the front section right at the stage, and so I thought that was pretty cool, that experience. But then we got hold of Mercules, and he said, you'll know me, I'm wearing a green shirt and khakis, and a minute later there he walks, and we're sitting there in LA in this auditorium talking to Mercules904.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Yeah, there was a lot of different people there. There was the press, and I'm sure more important people, if that's how we want to classify them, that were there. But, everyone was treated basically the same. You sat where you wanted, you talked to who you wanted, and everyone had the same perspective as we did. So there wasn't any, there was a huge section of Bungie employees. They all sat together, and, obviously they were obvious who they were, but, of course, other than that, we all just kind of mingled together. It was fun.
Yeah, like I said, it could not have been more welcoming to all of us that were at that event. It was really something else from the minute we got there. And so then, we had the countdown, and it hit 0, and everyone cheered, and we saw the opening cinematic. And what did you think when that went up on the screen?
Well, it was really exciting, but I will say this much. The one thing that I hated about it was, for us there, it was so loud. Oh my God, it was too loud. I mean, I've been to concerts. I'm probably deaf because I've had earphones in my ears forever, but that was really loud. But aside from that, everyone has probably seen it by now, and everyone has their own take on it. But, I thought Zavala's story was really moving. It was a perspective that I hadn't really thought about, the whole dying and getting revived by your ghost over and over and over, and, the whole evolution of him, and, Akora and her part in Cade's humor. I mean, it was just sort of a really good balance. And, it was good. It was really well put together. There was a little bit of a story there that you could sort of get into. I just thought it was really well done.
Yeah, and I had literally goosebumps watching it as Zavala kept dying and being brought back to life. And I didn't realize it in the initial watching it. Anon tweeted out later about young Amanda Holliday, and I didn't realize that when they're standing in the tower, the little girl next to Zavala's side was Amanda Holliday as a child watching a ship that became our first ship in D1 fly up into the sky. And as I watched it on YouTube later, I also didn't realize that it was telling Zavala's story from when he was like a level 1 guardian like us, wearing the level 1 armor out in the Cosmodrome, and then building the wall, and him evolving into the leader he became. And so that was something to rewatch and get that story and see that filled in was pretty cool.
And then they talked about it. They're going to have a lot more story involved, and that's what everybody's been asking for. And that was what was so great about that whole opening, was that you got a sense of a little bit of a story, a little bit of background about how it kind of started. And, they kind of went into the, when the Cabal attacked the tower, and, they kind of went into that mode. And you kind of really got the sense of how important Zavala was, and his trying to get everybody, out of there, and the whole, you felt the pressure and the stress, and it's kind of the thing that everybody wants, especially if you're really into the PvE aspect of it. You really want some story, and so it was really good to see a little bit of what we're going to be facing as we play the game in D2, about kind of how things are going to go down. And that was really, I thought they really did a good job of it.
Yeah, and not just that, but I mean, they had done it with the initial teaser trailer where we kind of saw Cade, a little bit in action, but these characters like Zavala and Ikora that have just been these static NPCs standing in a tower the last 3 years. To see Zavala go as the Cabal ships broke through the skyline and started sending their missiles forward, and this character that we've talked to that hasn't moved, that stood there with very little personality, if any, over the last 3 years, to see him come to life, and he went over and he cast that defender bubble, the fucking place went insane.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was definitely, everybody was really excited after that happened.
Yeah, I mean, there was a roar that doesn't really come through because they kind of quieted down the crowd noise on the stream as those cinematics were playing. But yeah, there was a deafening roar when he cast that bubble. People really responded to that. And then you see, we got to, Luke came out and he talked, and then he showed the gameplay for the Homecoming trailer, and we saw more Cade and Ikora in action there. But going to the gameplay, you are through and through a Titan, right?
Yes.
So what was your reaction when you saw the Titan with the Captain America shield throwing that off enemy faces?
Well, I mean, honestly, I was just stunned at all the powers. But honestly, the best part of the whole opening was them going through the rubble and seeing the poor sweeper bot. I was cracking up the whole time.
Yeah, people went nuts there too, and I was listening for that, and I wish that would have come through on the stream as well, because it's just kind of the quiet of the normal thing. But yeah, there in the at the event, it was again just a roar when the sweeper bot showed up.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the sound of the response of the crowd didn't come through on the reveal that everybody else saw, but it was overwhelming. People were screaming and shouting and clapping and laughing, and and those are the immediate reactions that you get, right? I mean, that's kind of how you know how people are going to perceive what you've put together for the audience, and it was received really well. I think a lot of everybody kind of saw what the gameplay was like, and we can talk about it, but at the end of the day, everybody was excited. So yes, when I saw that Titan throw that shield, I was like, oh my God, game is over. I mean, there's going to be so many possibilities about how this stuff is going to work that, I just want to get my hands on it,
And then we saw the hunter with the electric staff, but I think that even as the most dedicated Titan that I know, in your heart of hearts, you have to admit that the absolute show stealer was the Dawnblade.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. When that warlock started throwing all those freaking blades, I was like, oh my God, I got to get on that like immediately.
Yeah, it was God, and I know that we talked about that in our little mini episode that we put out this morning. But yeah, that was it was like one of those oh shit moments, and I would love to hear the stories of just kind of Bungie's take, as we sat there and just I can't imagine the feelings that they had to have been feeling sitting there with all the work that they've put in and everything that when it comes to this is a game that's still not complete. There's still the beta to go to see how we play as a community the game, and to tweak and to make whatever changes are still necessary. But they take these levels and they get this PvP map and the strike and this opening mission playable for us. And I know that's a lot of work, as they're still again trying to polish the rest of the game, and they're putting in a lot of work that they probably don't really have the time for to do an event like this. But they did it anyway, and they went all out with it, and I just can't imagine the feeling that they had sitting there and seeing the reaction there in that studio to the work that they'd done.
So how did you feel about Luke Smith's conversation that he had with the audience about what his role was?
I think Luke is an interesting character. He has, he's got a different sense of humor, and I know that he said things that obviously, that throw money at the screen and things that have rubbed the community the wrong way. I know I've been on the other side of Luke on things. He's got me blocked on Twitter because I got on his lawn. But I don't know. I would have loved, and we didn't try, and it didn't really occur to me. But I kind of wish that we would have had an opportunity to talk to Luke. I know that he made his comment, if there's something we don't like, they'll read about it on Reddit, and I wanted to say, and bnet, but I didn't. But, you have a perception of people, and it's something we've experienced here on the Destiny Truthcast with people that we bring, community members that we bring on from the forums. And there have been many community members that have come on that we might not have seen eye to eye with when we're anonymous names on a forum, because it's easy to lose that humanity between us as we're just anonymous people posting. And this experience, when we come on and we talk on here about this game, it does humanize things, and we get to know the not just the voices behind these anonymous gamer tags, but the personalities, and we get to know these guardians, and it's not just there. We've developed this relationship and friendship with Cozmo. DeeJ and I were I was probably a big pain in DeeJ's ass for a long time, and through talking, you get to know the person that's there, and I think that I really didn't understand DeeJ, and again, DeeJ is someone else. He's got a really unique kind of dry sense of humor, and there have been times that people have taken that the wrong way, but and we'll get to it. But DeeJ is a really good guy, and that was one of the really cool things of this experience too, was just getting to talk to him just a little bit. And again, it just further humanizes things, and he was as welcoming and again as gracious as could be. And, again, going back to Luke, I just kind of wish that we would have had that opportunity to talk to him, because I think that it would have been cool to kind of get an understanding on a more human level, where you kind of can see the person behind this personality that is projected up on a stage. That's really hard to read.
Well, the young woman that they had after him to discuss Guided Games, which is sort of at the heart of the matchmaking thing that they came out with the clans, and I thought she was very well spoken. She explained a lot of really cool things, and it kind of goes back to the center of what, going back to our discussion with Pete Parsons, turns out that really her and her experience with guilds and clans and just her entire history of doing things in that nature, and what she brought to, or what she's going to bring to D2, I think is going to be game changing for a lot of people. I mean, I think that was probably it was one of the things that they brought up as the biggest part of their reveal to everyone, and rightfully so. I think it's going to be a game changer for everyone, not only for the people that already have clans and guilds, but for people who are, that play by themselves and maybe be a little apprehensive. I think this is going to be an opportunity to really expand on your individual experience and your experience within a clan and as a clan leader. I think it's a big deal, and you're not going to be able to really perceive the impact of it just by listening to her and what she was trying to describe to everyone in that little few minutes that she had to talk about it. But I thought that was probably, to me, the most profound part of all of the speakers. I mean, we can talk about Luke Smith, and he did what he was supposed to do. He talked about the story, and he refused to give us any one shot of the raid, but that's fine.
Teased it enough.
He teased it enough, but I thought, and I really regret that I don't remember her name.
Emmie Chung.
Emmie Chung. She was, to me, the most significant speaker there. She was well spoken. She explained a lot of stuff, and she drew the most excitement for me just as a PvE player, and the possibility of moving forward. And I know it's not just for PvE, it's for PvP too, it's for everything. But, she really was a real bright spot in that whole presentation. I really liked her.
Well, just to let you know, because she actually, just before we started recording this, she tweeted out, "Thank you for the love and encouragement this week. I almost cried on stage because I saw you all there with your friends." And you could see throughout all the people that we talked to how much passion and dedication that they put into this, and how much this meant to them. And we had been sitting there talking to Cozmo about this the day before, and here it was, and they're showing it on this stage, and it was really cool. And like you said, I know that there are some people that are apprehensive about the whole clan aspect of it. I think it's a good thing. I think the clan integration is something that people have been asking for since Halo 2 to be in the game. And I think once people see it in effect and working, I think it will be a really good thing also.
Well, I mean, not only that, I mean, there are clans that are hundreds strong. There are giant clans, and they've made things a lot easier for them, and they've also given them, their own banner and their own identity, and it's going to be significant for those groups that are really into the clans. But it's also going to be an opportunity for people who are those single players, people that we've had on bnet before that say, I haven't been able to finish a raid, or I've not ever been able to do a raid, or, it's going to give them an opportunity to experience it, and may find that their friends list gets grown because of it. And the difference is, I guess, is that, we've gone to the whole LFG thing, and, this is BS. I have to go offline to go to some LFG to like hook up with somebody and blah, blah, blah. This is going to be in game. This is going to give you an opportunity to go right to your menu and actually try and join up in a clan and get into some of these activities that you've missed out on before. And that's one big thing that not only does Bungie know that people have missed out on, but so is everyone else who hasn't done it has missed out on. So I think this is a really good thing. And, like I said, I just thought she just really presented well and she did a really good job. But so then we got up, and what did we do next?
Well, before we got up, we do have to backtrack because there was one oh fuck moment of that hour presentation. It was about 57 minutes of, oh my god, this is incredible, and about 3 minutes of what just happened.
What was that?
The 4v4 announcement for all of multiplayer.
Oh, yeah.
And so we play.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot, Mr. Noseworthy.
One thing we've always wanted was the 6-team patrols or the 4-person fire teams, because we have more than 3 people that want to play and experience this content together. And so one thing that we've always been able to do is get together in our groups of 6 and we'll run the raids. But then, when there wasn't a raid to run, or we'd finish a raid, we'd all stay in that group of 6 and we'd go play some Rift, play some Iron Banner, Control, and that group was able to stay intact. And suddenly all of PvP is going to be 4v4, and we're like, well, what are we going to do? Because we've got this 6-person group that loves to play together and that have PvP'd together for ever now, and suddenly you're looking at a situation where 2 people are going to be left out all the time.
Right. So, going outside of the timeline, we did have an opportunity to talk to Hamrick about this and the reasoning behind going 4v4. The disappointment in it, I think, is that for competitiveness and for the reasoning behind it, or his reasoning behind it, is they tried all different variables, all different numbers of people playing a game, and he said they thought the 4v4 was the sweet spot. It wasn't crowded and chaotic. It matched the time to kill kind of, because they reduced it a little bit, and they just felt like that was the sweet spot, 4v4. And I'm not a big PvP player, and so I can't give the best response to it. The people that we interviewed and we talked that did play it and are the most familiar or are the most comfortable playing PvP, all were across the board, this is the best thing that's ever happened to PvP in Destiny. I mean, every single person. There was not one person that we talked to that said, oh, this is going to suck. The only people that really complained about it were people like us who are coming off of a PvE event and wanted to keep our team intact as something else to do later on. And, the weird thing about it is that I kind of got from some of the people that I talked to and some of the things that I read on the forums is that I play a lot of Destiny. I play 6 to 10 hours a day of Destiny. So if I do 2 raids a day and we decide we're going to play PvP, it's because I'm with like a bunch of people that I'm playing through most of the day with. And that's just the natural occurrence of what happens. But then there's like the people that are just strictly PvP. They do the campaigns and, maybe do a Nightfall or Strike or whatever. But they're really just PvP, and they're very competitive, and they focus mostly on PvP. And I think it's that group of people who will benefit the most from the change. It's just disappointing for us that it's not going to be, it's going to be a real problem, actually. But just to backtrack my own personal experience on the whole number thing, when Destiny came out, my friends, or the people that I played Halo with all those years, was 4 of us. And it was really disruptive when we went to 3. And so I kind of get the whole transition, and I can already tell you what's going to happen. You're going to lose some friends. You're not going to play with, that 6th person or that 5th person as much as you did in the past. And that's kind of anti-community. And what would have been a better option, or maybe there's something in the future that they can think of, is not just have 4v4, but have 6v6, have 8v8. I mean, my biggest thing was, like, can we get a big team kind of thing? I mean, and I hope that maybe they decide, okay, if they really want that competitive thing and they think the sweet spot is 4v4, let's expand a little bit on that for some of us casual players that are transitioning out of PvE activities or whatnot, whatever. Maybe there's just 8 of us that want to get together and do something. So I'm kind of hoping, that I know this is the beginning stages and they just said everything is going to be 4v4, but I really hope that they don't just do that. And if they do decide to do that, let's hope that it's something that you can set up with 8 players. Let's hope that it's 8 people on your clan. Yeah, let's hope it's on your clan and you can do 4v4, but you can still get the same kind of rewards. But I doubt that's going to happen because then, people will cheat and whatever. But I kind of hope that they don't just put us in a box at 4v4 on every single mode. I think that's long term. That's really going to break up a lot of friends, that have really transitioned, have grown into larger groups. And that's basically off of people that have done raid groups. But the percentage of people who have actually done raids is small. But their cure for that is the clan thing where they're asking you now to join. So if they want to expand those groups and, those groups have kind of gotten into a raid and, these people have developed relationships within a clan, then there's 6 people and then what? Like it's like you're raising the bar and you're giving everybody an opportunity to get that 6 people in a group together to do something. Well, give them an opportunity to do something after. And that's where I think that they're making a mistake. I really think it's probably the one thing that is not going to be good for D2.
Yeah, and going to that, and Hamrick talked a little bit about it, but he said the person that we really needed to talk to was Lars, and we looked for Lars, but he was in interviews, and we just were never able to catch up to him. But yeah, I just think it's just kind of weird, the whole dynamic now where we have the 3-person fire teams, the 4-person PvP, and the 6-person raids, and it seems disjointed. And I'd love to have had the opportunity to kind of ask Lars Bakken about that and just get a little more in depth. And I wish we could have had that discussion, but we'll see. Like you said, everyone that played it, and it's no joke, said, like you said, it was the best Destiny PvP they had experienced. I know that you and I did not, and I kind of, in hindsight, wish that we would have, and we'll get to waiting in line to play and whatnot, but we didn't play the PvP, but we did watch it being played. We watched it being played on the PC stations. We watched it being played over on the PS4 stations. One of the funniest moments, we were standing in line waiting to play. I don't remember if it was the campaign or the strike, and it's the new mode is an elimination style format also, and the dude was the last person on his fire team standing, and he had his super, and he popped his golden gun, and he jumped up to shoot his enemies, and he jumped off the map and killed himself and gave the other team the game win. And we just sat there and chuckled as he lowered his head in shame onto the countertop.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things that we talked about was, going back to the 4v4 PvP aspect, and, the bigger kind of PvE events that require 6 teams is what we don't know is, will there be other PvE events that can handle 6 people? I mean, we still don't know the rest of the game, and one of the things that we talked about with DeeJ was the things that he doesn't want to talk about, and they just wanted to kind of talk about the initial preview of what we saw and what everyone else saw, but there's other aspects to this game. We saw that the map is going to be expanded. We saw that there's going to be other places to go and other things to do. It's not going to just be the regular patrol that we're all familiar with. It's going to be much more complex, and there's going to be other activities. And, it could be that, outside of the raid, there could be other activities that a 6v6 team could probably engage in, is my hope, is that, that those will be the things that, that we'll be able to engage in. And, one of the things that we had asked Hamrick is there going to be a separation between PvE and PvP? And his response was no, until patches were going to be placed or, along the way, which is what we saw in D1. So I think they're going to be sort of the same in how they respond to balancing for the PvP group, and obviously we're going to be impacted in some way in the PvE group, but that remains to be seen. I think it's just going to be sort of the same kind of way they've done things in D1, but I'm hoping that for the PvE side of it, that there is going to be something else that we can look to, and if that's 6-man patrols and other aspects, then I'm all for that. I mean, if we can go and do some kind of like crazy patrol mission with a team after a raid, and it's very engaging, or if it's some sort of like horde thing, like we always said, like, wouldn't it be great if 6 people could go into Archon Forge? I mean, if it's something like that, then that sort of makes up the whole 6v6 PvP mode, kind of. Not really, but kind of.
Yeah, but like you said, it's something that when you get out of the raid, that you don't all have to go your separate way. That there's someplace else you can all go besides the whatever the social space is, and you can engage in another activity, and hopefully that is somewhere in the game, like you said, be it on patrol or an activity like the Archon Forge. So we got out of the trailer, and we walked a little, had to look through the room with the booths, and we got to watch Mesa Sean playing a bit of the strike.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting, just watching everybody. I mean, the whole, they had all this huge areas. They had a huge PC area. They had a huge area just for strikes, and then they had a huge area just for the campaign. And you had an opportunity to play and PvP regularly on PS4. So you had an opportunity to play any kind of mode you wanted to on whatever kind of platform. And so our first choice was campaign. And you want to tell them a little bit about your experience?
Well, before that, I will say that we went and got lunch. They had the event catered. They had all different kinds of sandwiches, boxed meals put together with salads, desserts, beverages. Just it was a top-notch affair. And I know you said you've been to events before, and you came away impressed with how overall the whole setup and what they did was.
Well, yeah, I mean, they planned for an event for people to be there all day. They had everything covered. There was nothing that they missed. They kept us fed and watered and happy, and there was nothing to complain about. I mean, it was pretty well organized. There wasn't a lot of chaos. I mean, they rotated us in and out of each gameplay mode that we wanted to play, and it was a little bit like being at an amusement park. You want to go play a strike, okay, stand in the line, they took your name, if there wasn't 3 of you, they matched you with another person, or, if you wanted to play PvP while you waited, you could do that. But, one of the things that I noticed was towards the middle of the event, or the time that people had spent, there weren't a lot of people playing on PC, and there weren't a lot of people playing PvP. The longest wait was for the campaign and the strikes. And as the event went further, it wasn't the PvP, the PC, or the campaign. It was the strikes. So it seemed to me like the people were really gravitating towards the PvE aspect of Destiny, if you had to make a choice. Like, that's the thing that I think the most people were actually most interested in, was the strikes.
Yeah. So, we went, we got in line, we ran into to Mercules and did our interview with him, and he was telling us about how the time to kill felt slower, the range on the weapons didn't seem as much, how it had a kind of a Halo feel to the gameplay. So we got through the line, and they took us over to play the campaign, and we kind of had different experiences with the campaign. And it was difficult because we're Xbox players, and so we're playing this on a PS4. I haven't played a PlayStation since PS1, because when the PS2 came out, I hated PS1 controllers and was the same controller. I was like, yeah, no. And so that's how I ended up eventually with an Xbox. And so it's still those controllers. And so I know you sat down, and it really affected your ability to experience that campaign.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it was not the kind of experience that I would have wanted experiencing it, because I just think the PlayStation controller is absolute garbage, and that's obviously a personal opinion, and I'm sure that would have changed if I was a PS person, but I'm not, and it was difficult for me to get acclimated to how things work. And despite the fact that most of the button mapping is probably the same, doing everything really wasn't. It was sort of different for me because my hands weren't like normally where they would be, and I don't get the kickback. The shock is completely different than it is in the Xbox. And we all use, you use an Elite, and so you have back paddles, and I have mine completely set up differently. So it was just a different experience. And I set my sensitivity extremely high, and the sensitivity on that was kind of low. So it was hard for me to acclimate, but it didn't really, once you got into the campaign and looked around, it was absolutely gorgeous. I mean, the graphics were incredible. The movement was definitely Destiny. I mean, everything that you experienced, it felt like Destiny, but it was different. Like, the enemies were changed, but also the time to kill was different too. Like, I had a hand cannon. I was a warlock. I had a hand cannon, and there were Vex. And generally, with a hand cannon and Vex, it's like one-shot kill, right? Well, it was taking me like 2 and 3 shots to kill these Vex, and I'm like, oh man, and they're coming in hordes, and then the Cabal start to show up, and then it was just like, wow, like, I'm being challenged here. This wasn't like rushing through a horde of enemies and getting to the next level. It was like I had to like really take these things down to get to the next level. So I think they're gonna switch it up a little bit on how fast it is to get through some of these higher level enemies.
So let me backtrack a little. So when you load it into the game, it's different. The specials are now in the heavy slot, except for the sidearms. Fusions, snipers, and shotguns are now a heavy weapon. But some of the primary weapons, like hand cannons, you can equip in the primary or secondary weapon slot. And so it really changed the dynamic of our setup, I know I was running initially Scout, hand cannon, fusion, and then went Pulse, SMG, and I think the grenade launcher. But what weapon setups were you playing with, and what did you think of the new weapon system?
So I did Pulse and hand cannon, and then I did machine gun. And the Pulse I did not like. I was really kind of bummed out about it. It sounded funny. It felt funny. And part of that wasn't necessarily because I didn't like what it was doing. It was the response that I was getting in my controller. And so
the feedback was really bad on those controllers.
Was bad. So it was hard for me to really gauge on how the performance was, because like it is when you shoot your trigger and you just kind of know like what's happening. You feel a connection with the actual weapon. I mean, I don't know how to describe it, but I know everybody knows what I'm talking about. It was just different. That's something that we've talked about. Like, you feel it, that's why Destiny, it's not like other games. You feel that real weight of a weapon in your hand, and all the weapons in Destiny really have, like the Suros scout rifles, feel really light, like an airsoft gun. Some have a real kick to them, and when you don't have that haptic feedback in that controller, it really takes away from that immersion. Yeah, so it was just different, because now when you look at your super bar, the super bar itself was a little bit different. You had not two slots, one for your grenades and one for your, secondary, whether it's throwing a knife or whatever your character specific does. You had a third option, which in my case, I think we were only allowed to play the Warlock in the campaign mode.
Yes.
And I didn't understand what the third option was, and primarily was because I didn't know what button mapped to it. So that was a PS4 failure for me. If it was an Xbox, I would immediately be able to understand what that button would have done. And, bad on me for not adapting sooner or whatever, but I now understand what it was supposed to do. It was a healing aspect. But just the whole super on the Warlock was insane. I mean, I was like, what the hell is going on? I'm like throwing these swords and like doing all this crazy shit and, just throwing grenades, and I had no idea what was going on. And I looked back at my setup to try to figure out like the mapping, because the mapping, like your tree or like your subclass tree was completely different, and I couldn't understand it. Like, I was trying to look at my class and figure out like my intellect and my discipline, and they had categorized it differently. And so they've made a lot of changes. It feels the same in that you still have really good movement, the guns are familiar, but now you have like two primaries, and now you have like different options for your heavy. Like, are you going to choose a sniper? Are you going to choose a machine gun or a rocket launcher? Or, what are you going to, choose for your special / heavy? Because kind of now it's its own class. And so that whole experience was different. And unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of time to like figure it out. I mean, you played the campaign and you kind of dealt with whatever it is that you had been given in terms of what your loadout was. And I changed all my guns. I tried a scout, and I tried fusions, and I tried a sniper, and but I wanted to also like experience the campaign and move along, and so it was something that in the back of my mind, all I kept thinking the whole time is this is crazy cool, but I don't really quite get it. I can't wait for the beta.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, I had a little bit different experience. So they took us over, and did you talk to the person that led you to your booth at all?
Yeah. He was with me most of the time. Okay.
Did you get any backstory on the person that took you over?
No.
So I went over, and one of the cool things about this whole event was all these people that were there getting our names, that were leading us to places, that they take us over to meet someone and they take us over to a station. They were all Bungie employees. These were all studio employees. Like, Josh Hamrick was over like leading people to stations at the PS4 PvP area. We went over, and I got led to a station. And I sat down, and I asked the gentleman, I'm like, what do you do at Bungie? And he said he does art for the campaign levels. I'm like, oh, really? What do you do? He's like, well, I did the art for this level you're about to play. And I thought that was the fucking coolest thing. Like, I'm sitting there, and I'm about to play Destiny 2 for the first time, and the guy that is leading me over to play the game, that's sitting there handing me the controller and headphones, is the guy that has designed this level I'm about to play. And to me, that was just really pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That is cool.
So I sat down, and yeah, the PS4 controllers, I'm sorry, I do not know how people can, the triggers just felt so just off, and the thumbsticks are just so weirdly placed. It's just not a really ergonomic or natural feel. But I knew that it was going to be an acclimation period. So the first thing I did is I went to the menu, made sure I was on inverted, went and changed my sensitivity, checked all those screens to see how different they were. They were relatively the same. I think a couple of the things might have been in different places. Then I went to the character screen, and I sat there and went and tried to look at the armor and inspect the perks on it, and it was disabled. Went to the weapons, tried to hit A to inspect them and see, and that was disabled, so you couldn't really see how anything's going to work there with any kind of perks or upgrades. But I went to the character screen, and it's very different. It's a lot simpler and pared down from the current subclass trees. But I saw that secondary ability that you had to hold down a button to activate. The grenades on the Dawnblade were the grenades we know from the Sunsinger. We still had the solar grenade, the fusion grenade, the firebolt grenade, and we still had the melee, the scorch. So, like you said, it was familiar. It was Destiny, but it was also a brand new game. I mean, that was 100% just as soon as you were 30 seconds in, you knew it was a brand new game. But I also felt kind of like Mercules had said, it had a real Halo feel to it. The fusion grenades to me felt more like throwing a Halo plasma grenade, if that makes sense. Just the overall gunplay, like I said, it was Destiny weapons, Destiny movement, but it just had that Halo-ish, and maybe it was a slower time to kill, but it just had a real Halo feel to it, but in a good way. It was like the kind of best of both worlds is what I got out of it. But I sat there for so long looking at the menus that I think they came over and started huddling behind me, I think, to see what I was doing, make sure maybe I wasn't taking screens or whatever. And I was like, oh, I should probably start playing the game, because I sat there so long just looking at stuff. And then I went and I tried to switch up weapon loadouts every minute or so as I went through. I ended up using every weapon except for the rocket launcher and sniper rifle. I never did use a sniper rifle when we played, but yeah, that was my experience with it. I thought I liked the pulse rifle. I hated the scout. I was really surprised, and I don't know if it's just that weapon in the game. I did not like the scout rifle. I liked the pulse rifle. I liked the auto rifle. Felt like an auto rifle. The SMG felt like the current heavy machine guns to me. The grenade launcher was badass. A fusion rifle was a fusion rifle. Loved it. But the shocker to me was the hand cannons. And you know that I am not a hand cannon user in D1. It's outside of sidearms my least used weapon, and it was probably my favorite weapon of D2 was the hand cannon.
Well, I mean, I just felt like all the weapons had this increased performance, not only in the way that they you use them, but just the graphics were crazy. Like the grenade launcher that I was using was crazy. I mean, it was like shooting off like all this crap, and like it was like you were standing like right next to it as it was happening. It was vivid, and all these like little bombs were going off, and you know, it was just, it was completely different. Visually, it was different. It was like the same thing. Like you had the same perspective. You know, you recognized the enemies, even though there were different looking enemies. It was just so much more vivid. I mean, I can't describe it. You know, playing it was just so much different.
Yeah, it was fun. It was immersive. Like you said, the enemies, we were fighting the Cabal, but it was not the Cabal that we have been fighting. When we fought the Vex, you know, some of them were the same models, but they were new as well. And the enemies were bossy. The snipers, when we get to the strike, but it was fun. And so, I want to.
I mean, let's talk about the strike. I mean, the strike was insane. They had like all different kinds of ways that you got around, and just like the huge space that we had to like just go through to get to the next level.
It was so big we got lost and had to have someone come and lead us back to where we were supposed to be because the level was so big.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like incredibly huge.
Yeah, so we played the strike. We were able to be in a fire team for that together. Unfortunately, there were no microphones, so it was kind of just looking at each other, and it was so loud we couldn't even really talk station to station. But you were able to play a Titan when we did the strike, which I have to say, probably my favorite moment of that day, with everything else that happened, my hands down favorite moment of that day was sitting there at that station, and you know, it's in a triangle. You know, I'm sitting there, you're sitting there, our teammates sitting there. You know, I can look to my left, see them, look to my right, and see you. And so we're sitting there, and you're on your little station, and you've got the controller in your hand and the headphones on, and playing a Titan, and being there with you. You know, all this time we've played, connected, you know, across these miles and this headset, and to be there together playing Destiny, and look over and see you with the controller playing. That was a pretty cool experience for me, and probably my favorite moment of the day.
Yeah, I was laughing the whole time. I'm like, what the hell are we doing? I mean, it was, you know, people have described the supers as like the roving supers, and that's what it was like. It was like I was a striker, and I was like slamming like multiple people, and it was like wasn't ending, and I was giggling like a 5-year-old the entire time, because I was taking out like these enemies one after another after another after another, and I was just laughing my ass off. I mean, I genuinely had an awesome time playing that strike. I mean, it was just funny as hell. And of course, you know, there's a few things in there that, you know, of course Bungie comes up with their little puzzly kind of like trying to get through moments. And, you know, it was real typical of the kind of approach. You know, it wasn't just, you know, go through it like really quick and like get, you know, from A to Z. You know, there was a way that you needed to kind of do stuff, and that was kind of really enjoyable. You know, it wasn't just a stick in the mud kind of thing. There was a lot of little stuff that you needed to do to get to the next level, and that was really fun.
Yeah, and I actually was able to talk our teammate. I sat down, and I was on the Warlock station, and I had already played the Warlock over on the campaign, and so I got him to switch with me because he had already played the Hunter playing PvP. So he let me play the Hunter, and like you were on the Striker, which was again familiar yet different. We wondered, you know, how they would do the old subclasses coming back, and they kept a lot of them the same, but they reinvented things too. They gave them, you had the secondary ability that gave you, what was it, the little wall that you threw down that you hid behind?
Yeah, I had like this shield that I could put down.
Yeah. And so I had, I was a gunslinger. And, the first time I cast Golden Gun, I shot my 3 shots. And then I'm still in Golden Gun. I'm like, well, what the fuck? And so I shot another. And so then the next time, I got off like 5 shots or so. And then I realized that the Golden Gun functions like the Hammer of Soul now, where, it lasts a lot longer. You can get, I think, up to six shots off. You have more time, which really changed the dynamic and made it a much more useful and enjoyable super for PvE, because you had more time to actually, aim and take out enemies and use it strategically. But the best moment was with the trip mines. The first trip mine I threw, there was a Cabal in front of me, and I'm like, I wonder if the trip mines will stick again. And I threw it at the Cabal, and sure enough, I made a fucking trip mine unicorn out of him, and boom, he blows up. And I'm like, oh my god, trip mines are trip mines again. This is amazing. And then we're going, and the snipers were so bossy. At one point they took out all 3 of us, and they were bunched up on a ledge like way above us. And I'm like, I wonder if I could throw a trip mine up there. And I went and I threw this trip mine as like almost straight up, and threw it as high as I could, and it's sailing up, and there's 3 snipers way up on this ledge, and I'm watching, I'm like, oh my god, it's gonna hit the wall like 20 feet above them. And it goes up, but then it starts arcing back down, and it hits the wall like directly behind them, explodes, and launches 2 of them off. And I wish I could have captured that moment, because I mean, it was just like you said you were giggling like a 5-year-old. It's like, oh my god, this is fucking amazing. Like, it was so much fun. But the most fun thing was my secondary weapon. I didn't change the loadouts too much during the strike, because I had switched up so much during the campaign. So I used a pulse rifle for my primary, and then the secondary I had an exotic hand cannon, and then I ran a rocket launcher for my heavy. And this exotic hand cannon, everything you killed exploded. You didn't have to get a headshot for it to explode. Like, every kill made the enemy explode. And it was like super Fatebringer. Like, I mean, it made Fatebringer like a toy. It was the most badass thing. And all the talk that we've had on the forums of exotics not feeling exotic, well, it's the only one I've used, but exotics felt fucking exotic. I mean, it was pretty badass. And I wish you would have got to use that, because I know you love hand cannons and have always been a huge fan. And one of my regrets is that you didn't get to play with that, because I know you love Fatebringer too, and it was so much fun. RWG.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I mean, I just felt like my own experience within that fire team was pretty solo. Like, I was so wrapped up in what I was doing, like when they brought out those stupid Cabal dogs. I mean, we were being overtaken by hordes of these dogs. Yeah. And
so many.
All these like giant like Cabals with their giant axe arms were like taking us out. I mean, I was like, oh my god, this isn't like your 1 to 3 enemies that are going to pop out and like kill you. I mean, it was
way more enemies on screen.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was really crazy. And then like the end with the boss was a lot of fun, but I'm not going to give everything away, but it was definitely, it was a lot of fun. It was challenging. It felt Destiny. I agree that it did feel a little Halo-ish, but not like Halo. It just felt a little bit like,
that vibe.
Yeah, like you got the vibe, but it did feel completely different. It's like the same game but different. Like you could definitely feel the upgrade. Like, you could see it in the graphics, you could see it within the guns. I mean, even the ships, when we were like floating in the air, like everything looked completely different and new and upgraded. The graphics were beautiful. Just when we were out lost, I mean, all the visuals were gorgeous. I mean, I was just like, where are we? And oh my God. I mean, everything about the game just reeked Destiny, but at like a higher level. And so it was really, really, it was a short, little tiny blurb of being able to see the big picture, but you could immediately tell that it was, really well done.
To me, what it felt like, that familiarity yet a new game, it reminded me of going from like Halo CE to Halo 2 or Halo 2 to Halo 3. Like the first time you got to that scarab that you had to take down and climb with the rockets all around, that kind of feel of going to something like that. It had kind of an epicness to it. But I want to just kind of backtrack just for a minute, because we had talked about how we met DeeJ in the parking lot, and he was doing interviews pretty much all day at the event, but he took a good 10 minutes of his time to come over, and he found us and talked to us, which I thought was pretty cool. He really made time for us, and we got to talk to him a little bit. And like you said, one of the things he told us was, and I think this is prescient to kind of what's going on the forums and some of the posts now and questions being asked, is that they wanted to focus on what they're showing now. They want to talk about the things that they're showing. There will be time to talk about a lot of other things as we move on over the coming months. There's still a lot of time before D2 releases, and there's still a lot of time to have these discussions about other things when they're ready to show them. But just like you said, right now they want to focus on what it is that they've put together for us at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he said specifically, I don't want to talk about engrams, I don't want to talk about the different ways
economy,
grinding and the economy, and that's what everybody's been like, well, we didn't see enough and we don't know what's happening and blah blah blah. And his point is that you see what you see now. There's going to be the beta, and then there's going to be other things that'll be revealed. This is just sort of like, look what we can show you now kind of moment, and people can take from what they want out of it. They can decide if this is enough for them to make a decision about how they want to move forward, or if they're just like, I just need to see more, and that's everyone's prerogative. And but I think at the end of the day, if you like Destiny and you play it a lot now, there was enough just in what they showed that would be enough to spend another $60 for the game. I mean, in my opinion, it may not be for everybody, and it may just be you're so disgruntled about other things that have happened in the past, and you don't know which way it's going to go, and you might be upset. But I thought that DeeJ's point stood. I mean, we all have way more opportunity to see how this game is going to be unfolding in front of us, and one of those is going to be the beta, and that'll give us a little bit more opportunity to see how things actually work, which is one of the things that I'm looking forward to, because like I said, we had our own experience with the campaign and the strike, and I had a ton of fun playing it. I thought it was gorgeous, and I really liked it. But I want to see kind of like how these things work. Like, what's the cooldown? What's the how are these supers gonna work with each other? And it's just like the little things, the things that you sort of pay attention, that you plan around and stuff like that, like how it's going to impact. But at the end of the day, like, I've already decided that this is Destiny. I've put in 1 billion hours already. I'm pretty sure I'm going to put 1 billion hours in a D2. And so anyway, I'm rambling, but I just felt like his point was right. It's like, let's just look at what we've seen today. What's your initial thoughts on it? How do you feel about it? What did you walk away from? And the difference is that the people that were there in the event had a much different experience than the people that watched it on Twitch. And some people walked away feeling like they didn't see enough to make a decision, or that they didn't really get enough out of it, that they thought that it was a different game and that they thought they would like it. But my experience walking away from it was pretty extreme. I mean, I felt like everything that that was significant that we had asked for in the past was really brought to the forefront in this. And in terms of how things looked and they felt, it was familiarity, but way different, way upgraded, beautiful, completely different, new challenges. And that to me is like the next level. That was a prequel, and I really felt like this was where, Bungie did it right.
And we talked to DeeJ a little bit about the matchmaking, and he he talked about the reticence they had because people on the internet can be people on the internet, and they'll troll, and there's the fear that players will group up with the randoms and then kick them before the rewards, which is kind of why with the clans, they're hoping that kind of limits that. But even he acknowledged, there's probably still going to happen. There'll be clans that do it. To which we brought up to him, maybe there could be a system where clans can be ranked, and as you help people can leave you a positive rating if they join you as a random and your clan is helpful, and if you do stuff where you kick people, they can leave you a negative rating, and that's something that can be seen when random players are searching through. So and we actually ran into Pete for a moment, got to talk to him a couple more minutes. That's something we talked about a little, and he said it's something that they've kind of considered, something along those lines. But then we also got to ask DeeJ about his favorite moment of the day, and that was pretty neat.
Yeah, he was like totally fanboying the whole thing. His experience sitting next to the voice actor for Zavala, and there is a tweet out there of a picture of him sitting next to him, and he just felt he seemed to have he was really moved by sitting next to Zavala, and like everyone has their own experience about their own fanboy moment, I guess. And for him, that seemed to be really like a high point for him internally. And you could really see it in the animation, in his face, and the way he talked about it. And he seemed really moved about it.
Yeah, it was really cool. Like he just had this massive respect and admiration for the gentleman that plays Zavala, and you could tell that it was, like you said, that it really meant a lot to him to be there and get to sit next to him, and that was really cool. And then for me, it was neat. We're sitting there talking, and DeeJ said to me, the 2014 me can't believe that I'm standing here talking with Lost Souls, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably a really good moment for you. What was your favorite moment of being at the event?
My favorite moment again was when we were sitting down, and like I said, being there, playing Destiny together. It's a game that brought us together through the online experience, and we play all the time, connected by Xbox Live and our headsets. But just getting to be there and watch you play Destiny, and particularly get to play your Titan, that for me was the highlight. And beyond that, just how unbelievably welcome they made us feel. I mean, we're not big name streamers, we're not big name YouTubers. We're two people from the bnet forums, and they could not have been more accommodating. And like you said, they treated everyone the same, and they were just so happy that everyone was there, and just so excited to show us this thing that they've been working on for the last few years, and so excited to see what we thought about it, and that was really cool as well. What about you?
Well, I mean, for me, it was just the whole atmosphere of everyone just having a kick-ass time. I mean, it didn't matter where you looked. I mean, I saw so many teams in 4 playing PvP, just laughing and throwing their hands up in their air and just, then laughing. And then, it was like what every person probably does when they're at home. I mean, there was a lot of happy people there. I should say that. I mean, it was just really a fun event. I mean, there was just a lot of stuff going on, and there was a lot of people that were there that were completely, having a lot of fun. And that was one of the good things that, the downside of seeing a lot of negativity about Destiny, and we've lived it for a long time and talked about a lot of the negativity, and I don't it sounds like us talking about it, we've become like these typical fanboys excusing everything, and we're all wrapped into it. But the reality of it is that it was a fun event with a lot of people that were having a lot of fun, and there was no escaping it. The feeling in that arena at the moment that the countdown ended and they started the review or the preview was electric. Everybody was having a good time. Everyone had the same reaction as anyone would in a movie theater. I mean, it was just a lot of fun. And, outside of that, professionally, the event was incredible. I mean, they had all kinds of great support on all the stations and all the Bungie employees that were personally involved. And for me, it wasn't a particular moment. It was the whole thing. It was just from the time we walked in to the time we left, and then when we left, we got a bag of stuff, like they gave us like
bag.
They gave us swag bag. I mean, they just really went out of their way to make sure that the full experience was realized, and I think that they succeeded in it. And I know that there was a lot of people that put a lot of effort into putting in all those stations and all the equipment, and the whole preview of there was just so many layers of competent performances, from the speakers to the people that were getting you through a line. Everyone was on it, and they did a really good job. And it was a good experience overall from the beginning to the end. And I think that is what I got away from it, was that they did a really good job doing it.
So we got out of the event, and we went and we had dinner, and as incredible as the previous day and surreal experience had been, as incredible as the day at the event had been, that was not the end of our experience that day.
That's right. We ended up going to a bar in a hotel and meeting up a bunch of people that we had met earlier in the day, and a few people from Bungie.
Yeah, we met up with Mercules there, and he showed up with Bones from Crucible Radio, which was pretty cool. We just said hi to him briefly, and then we went in, and there were Cozmo and DeeJ, and we went over and talked to Cozmo, and ended up having drinks together, and in a very surreal experience we're sitting at the bar with Cozmo, and he asked you what's going on the bnet forums, and we're sitting there at an after party in LA watching Cozmo read the feedback on bnet, and that was something that was very surreal as well.
Yeah, I had bnet open, and I was looking at the posts, and he was sitting right next to me looking at the same ones, and I'm like, yeah, look at this one, read this one, and he's like, oh yeah, look at this one, let's just read this one, and so it was kind of funny that we were both sitting at the bar looking at bnet.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. So then we ended up meeting James Tsai from Bungie, who is the head of PvE, and we talked to James for probably about 15-20 minutes.
Yeah, it was about that.
And he was again, and going back, we didn't really we said we talked to Josh Hamrick, and I just want to say Josh Hamrick was I knew he was a nice guy. We had talked briefly when I put the post up about fusion grenades. We talked a little, and he was like really down to earth and nice. But God, Hamrick was just the nicest guy in person. Like, he was everything I kind of expected he was going to be, but more so. He could not have been any more friendly. And James was the same way. I didn't know James, but we got to talking, and he was just so nice, and told us his story about how he started at Bungie and the Halo days, and ended up where he is at now. I tried to pry a little information from him on exploration in D2, but the secrets were not being let out. And you asked him about, as a PvE designer in the company, how he handles the effects of PvP and PvP changes affecting PvE, and I thought that was a pretty cool conversation.
Yeah, so I said to him, so, one of the biggest complaints we have on the PvE side is, when PvP comes into play and all these nerfs happen, and how it has an impact on some of the raids, never mind just strikes and other stupid stuff. Not that it's stupid, and his explanation to me is that, his team sort of explains to the PvP team the impact and how it's going to affect the PvE side, and all they can do is either come to some sort of, an agreement or conclusion, or, there's some give and take there. And so it's kind of what you would expect to happen, but I kind of got the feeling that, I kind of walked away from the feeling like the PvP group kind of has a little bit more preference than the PvE team does. Didn't you kind of get that from that?
I don't know if I got that, because I had a few glasses of wine in me at that time. But I know that he said that he just tried to educate them and explain to them, like you said, what the effects were, and give them as much knowledge, I guess, as he could on how things would work.
Yeah, but you can see the results, though, in D1. There's a lot of things in D1, like in the PvE aspect, that was, we all kind of worked around after we kind of got over it, and we just kind of did what we had to do it. And, I don't know if they foresaw that, as, people would just acclimate and make do with whatever. But, I guess from his perspective, he can only kind of go over how those things will have an impact on PvE. But I still kind of felt like deep down there is a separation between PvE and PvP, and everybody knows it. And PvE is probably, going to have to somehow make up for it, for whatever reason, because, PvP is not, it's not that it's more important, but that it has to be in a certain way that is constantly moving and evolving and changing, and kind of living up to what Bungie's always said, that they don't want you to just be stagnant with the one kind of gun kind of thing. They want things to sort of change and change up and PvE sort of has to keep up, kind of like, and that's kind of how I felt like his take was on it. So that was sort of an interesting conversation, and we couldn't it wasn't like we could get down to the nitty gritty and talk about specifics, but I kind of walked away from, I could just sort of tell that there was a definite okay, well, PvE has to sort of make some changes then because PvP is as well. And so that was sort of how I felt about it.
Yeah, and I tried to ask a little bit about the exploration of the worlds and how talked about kind of like the Halo C experience, we could really do a lot of things that we weren't kind of supposed to, glitch outside, of maps, get up on top of the island level, knock down the Banshee, fly it through to other areas of the snow level. And
well, what's funny about that, do you remember when we were talking to, I don't know if it was him or not, but do you remember that very discussion is that they felt like it was more important that they find all of the ways that people could change the experience that it was meant for.
Yeah, that was James, and he was saying that, their concerns were, things that, people glitching in maps where they could find a place where they could put their gun through a wall and shoot people and not be damaged back. That things like that experience of someone maybe being able to get up someplace where they weren't supposed to go, something that was something kind of like fun, like the Dreadnought, I guess, kind of deal, which they kind of built in with the basketball court. But people being able to, maybe get places on maps, that's something that they, wouldn't be as looking to go and say, okay, we have to get rid of that and correct that, that it was those things that affected like competitive play and stuff were the things that they were really more concerned with when it came to that kind of thing.
Yeah, he definitely has some interesting comments that, you could tell that he, when you were talking about, is there going to be an opportunity for us to jump higher than the ceiling kind of thing? Will we be able to kind of traverse through the worlds? And, what he was basically saying is I'm not going to tell you anything, but I think by not saying anything, I kind of walked away from it. I think they heard you and everybody else. When D1 trailer came out, everybody was like, you guys said we could go over there and walk over here. There was no place that you couldn't go. And I kind of feel like I would be shocked if the constraints from D1 are in D2. Just based on the original preview, and they showed us the maps and all the different things that we could do and where we could go and the secret places and all this stuff. I kind of feel like they heard it, I think there's going to be a lot of things that people are going to be really surprised of where they can go and where they can get to, and that was kind of how I felt he was going, but couldn't really say, I guess.
Yeah, I kind of got that. Like I said, he wouldn't divulge anything, but I kind of had that hopeful feeling too that maybe we are gonna see that exploration. And then outside of the event itself, I think we both had a couple favorite moments of the day when we were there, and I know for you it was probably your favorite moment when you got to meet someone that you really respect a lot in the Destiny community and had talked about earlier in the day, and suddenly there they were at the after party.
Right. So, there was a lot of favorite moments for me that night, and we hung out with DeeJ and Cozmo most of the night. That was just how it worked out. we talked with their clan, the TTL clan, and I can't remember their names because they all have like Nightmare and whatever names attached, but they were really cool dudes and funny as hell, and had a lot of fun talking to them, and talking to Mercules and his friends, and just like there was just like a bunch of people there that were just really fun. And
we got to meet Justin Social from Activision that had invited us to the event.
Yep, and he was really fun. And
Pherian was there. We ran into there.
Yep, and he was the community focus the week before that we were, and he was in the same hotel we were in actually, which was pretty funny. But everybody was drinking, and it was a lot. And so one of the things that I learned from DeeJ was in his background of life was his favorite word was enunciation. And that was cracking me up because he was basically saying the best thing about, the kind of background I have and drinking is being able to enunciate. and it gives off the feeling that you haven't been drinking as much as DeeJ. And he was lit and funny, and you could really just see, after all of the stress of the day and the week that they had prepared, between him and Cozmo, they really let their hair down, and they were really having a lot of fun. And genuinely, just both of them were just so nice. I mean, I know it's just like so cliche for us to like come on here and talk so nice about DeeJ and Cozmo. I mean, because there's so many like mixed feelings about the community management at bnet, but honest to God, two really nice people. I mean, really nice, both of them.
Yeah.
But for me, it was because I was sort of surprised because I didn't see this person at the event, was Say No to Rage, and he is the only Twitch person that I actually watched for, many months in occasion. Like I said before, I don't watch Twitch streamers, and I don't watch a lot of YouTubers. I'll watch featured stuff, and like if somebody comes out with something funny, and like the dads came out with those cool Christmas things and stuff like that. Like I've watched all of that, but I don't follow them. But I have always followed Say No to Rage, and he was there, and I kind of was like, I kind of like totally fucked it up. I like looked at him, and I like looked at his shirt, and I'm like, your Rage, and I'd already like 2 glasses of wine in me and maybe a beer and a half or something, I don't even know. And so he probably thought I was like, oh my God, who's this dumb broad, and so I kind of felt stupid. But we talked to him for like half an hour plus. I don't even know. We talked to him for a long time, and that was really cool for me because like I know what he does, and he takes people through raids, and that's what I do. Like I do raids, and so I had an opportunity to talk to him about all different aspects of raids and how to do certain things, and the best part of it was I learned a couple of things that I want to try now in Wrath of the Machine, and so that for me was really good because like that was the closest that I ever like felt like, okay, I'm behind this content creating sort of machine Twitch person, because I don't know, it wasn't like fanboyish, but for me, he probably thought I was, but I really like the way that he like does stuff. Like he's not wrapped up, in my opinion, for the things that we all maybe not really like, like he's not talking about, how to do this and that. He's just like trying to like get people through stuff and, have people have a shared experience. And for me, anyway, it doesn't even really matter what I think about it. It just, it was really good to meet him, and I had a really good discussion with him, and that was like a a cool thing for me.
Yeah, and he was, again, just like everyone else, you know. I mean, he was as friendly and as cordial, and it was, you know, there was no I'm a big time streamer, you know. We just talked Destiny, just like we're talking Destiny now, just like we talked Destiny on the forums. We talked about the raids, you know, asked him his favorite raid, which is the Vault of Glass. And like you said, we talked for a long time. And yeah, it was just really cool being there in that place. And then for me, you know, after we got done talking to him, we went over and we were talking with Cozmo and DeeJ again. And, you know, we're sitting there and Cosmo's sitting at the bar and we're standing, you know, kind of beside him. DeeJ is standing with us. And I think one of their TTL clanmates was there too, wasn't he?
Yeah, 2 of them.
Yeah, and so we're sitting there and a girl walks up and she walks up to DeeJ and she says, Are you the Bungie people? And he's like, why is that? He says, because they told me the Bungie people are buying drinks tonight. And he kind of, what was his reaction? Just kind of like shook his head and looked or something. And so I saw Mercules and a couple people sitting at a table kind of behind DeeJ. And I said, hey, do you see that table right there? That's the Bungie people right there. You need to go talk to them. And so she went over to Mercules and their table and was asking them to get her drinks. And then she came back over and she's like, they said that they're not, they said you're Bungie. And I said, no, you see that guy? And there's a guy in a sweatshirt or sweat jacket. I said, you see that guy with the logo? He's Bungie right there. You need to go talk to him. So she goes over to talk to him to try to get her free drinks. And so, you know, that was kind of the, you know, we didn't see her after that. And, you know, we talked a little more with Koz and DeeJ and said our goodbyes. We took a really cool picture with them and Say No to Rage. That was really a cool moment. And I got a hug from DeeJ. And he said, I can't believe I'm hugging lost souls, and that was another sweet moment, DeeJ. Thank you. You know, Pope's gonna be a little jealous, but just don't let him listen. And so then you know, we went around and we said our goodbyes, and so the next morning I wake up and I'm looking at Twitter, and I see a picture, you know, that Merc had put up from the party, and it tagged it. And so the gentleman in the blue sweat jacket with the logo that I had sent the lady over to get the free drinks from was True Vanguard.
Yeah,
and I just thought that was
yeah. And the funny thing is that this girl wasn't like, hi, I want to get drinks from the bnet. She's like, with her hands on her hips, like, I understand you're the one that's going to give me the drinks. Who is the one that's going to give me the drinks? And DeeJ was, like, secretly, like, sneaking behind the Vanguard dude. And we all were just like, oh, no, this guy over here. And this guy, we're pointing to the Vanguard people. And he's just, like, hiding behind. And this girl is just, like, adamant. Like, who is getting my drinks? I mean, she started to get, like, angry about it. It was just hilarious. I mean, yes. Obviously, it was a moment you had to be there for. But she was just, she was out of control. But so was everyone else there. I mean, there was quite a few drunk people there.
Yeah, well, and I, you know, I thought it was funny too that, you know, and I like I said, we had some drinks in us, so I probably should have realized the TV logo and known it was True Vanguard, but I had no idea because we just didn't get introduced when we were there. But yeah, like I said, the next morning when I realized that it was True Vanguard that I pushed her off onto as she tried to demand drinks from DeeJ. I thought that was just fucking hilarious. So I don't know how much True Vanguard appreciated that, but it it was pretty funny on our end. So yeah, it was a hell of an experience, a hell of a day before, a hell of a day at the event, and a hell of a night after.
Yeah, so like our whole experience isn't about necessarily like, the big outpouring of complaints today on the forums, which is why isn't it, 30 frame per rate versus 60, because we've seen it all and we've heard everything and we've seen the official Bungie response. It was about the experience, which we're trying to share with you. And, for us, it was just a lot of fun. And I'm sure anybody in our shoes would have had the same amount of fun and may have come off of it a little bit different than what you guys all saw in, the review and everything else. It was very exciting to be there. There was a lot of really cool people there, and it was a lot of fun. And so we probably have a little bit of a fanboy perspective of it, but it was really fun. I mean, it was just a happy experience. And, in the days and events that happen between now and the release, we'll have more things to talk about. The beta, we'll be able to all experience the beta, and we'll all be able to go into D2 and have our own perspectives on it. And I'm sure we'll all have our own complaints and likes and everything else. But for what it was worth for the event, it was a lot of fun. What we saw there as we played the games that no one else has seen was tons of fun. It was Destiny, but fun. And that's what we walked away from. And both of us hope that, you kind of hear what we're saying in terms of, we just need to give it a little bit more time, see what else they're going to bring out, show us a little bit more information. There just was so much that they didn't tell us. It's just left to be seen about, how it's all going to go down. But for the most part, we had a lot of fun.
Yeah. And there's going to be, you guys are going to talk up the game because you were there and you're this and that. And you know what? People can say what you want and think what you want, but the beta will be out, and people need to play it because it's like you said. We got to experience it, and it was a lot of fun, and it was like you said, it's Destiny, but it's a brand new game. And what I hope that I hope a couple things. I hope that we were unbelievably fortunate to be in a position to be there. Again, it's something that 3 years ago I never would have dreamed that we'd be in LA at the D2 premiere, and that is in a large part because of, a large part meaning 100% because of the bnet community, and how they have embraced the Destiny Truthcast and participated and let us, get to know them and hear their stories and talk Destiny with them and humanize that experience. And what I hope people take away is that it's kind of the same thing with Bungie themselves. And we've gotten to meet some incredible people from Coz, DeeJ, James, Josh, Pete, all the people that we've gotten to interact with. And again, we're just two people from the bnet forums. We're not bringing them in revenue. We're not having thousands of viewers, a week, 100,000 watches on YouTube, but they could not have been, again, as accommodating or as nice to us, and they could not have treated us any better and truly made us feel like really welcome, and that they not only enjoyed us being there but wanted us to be there. And I'm thankful to them for that as well. And I hope that, like I said, it was, I think we had probably one of like a very unique experience of people that went to this event, and everything we experienced. And I hope that we've been able to share that in a way today that people kind of got to experience that and get to know a little bit more about the people that we got to interact with. And I hope we were able to portray just how dedicated they are to this game, how much they genuinely care about the community, and want this game to be representative of not just their vision but ours as well. And I think they are really excited for what Destiny 2 is going to be, and I think it's kind of going to be like, when all's said and done, kind of a love letter to the community, much like Halo Reach was back in the Halo days.
Well, I mean, not only that, I just think it's, I think it's just their way of kind of progressing. I mean, as a team, they've decided on how they want to go forward, and it was evident in the strike playlist and the campaign and how they wanted to kind of change things up, and combined with the guided games and all the things that we've talked about in the past. I mean, there are so many things that we don't even know yet. I mean, it's the unknown of the known. But what we saw was just in the gameplay and the graphics and everything that we saw, it was just incredible. It was really cool. And I wasn't hung up on the whole like 30 frame crap. I mean, it just really did make a difference to me. It was not a factor at all. And, if you like Destiny, that's not going to be the reason why you don't buy the game. Maybe, but if you still like it, it's going to be, it's not going to be a factor. And I think, I think most people get over it. If you're into the whole like 60 frame, and you're really competitive in PvP, then yes, you probably would want to move over to that. But, I just didn't see it as an issue. I mean, it was just so clear and fast, and, everything was just perfect. I mean, I just did not have any kind of hiccup on it at all. And like I said, it was beautiful. The scenery and the graphics were just incredible. It was so vivid, and you could just tell that it was a step up. It was a step up. It was Destiny 2, definitely. It was a sequel feeling, definitely. And it was everything that I thought it should be. And, we'll learn more as it goes on, but I think it's premature to be, negative at this point. We all need to see more, and I look forward to seeing more. I look forward to the beta, and anybody else is going to do it is going to get the same, effect that I do. And, then we can have a little bit more further discussion.
And one last thing, our next episode will be episode number 50. And so that will be something special as well.
Most definitely.
So I would just like to say, Red Wing Girl, that it was really an incredible experience, and getting to experience this with you, and getting to do a podcast, be it brief, together, recorded out there, that we put up. Just the whole thing was amazing, and I am as always, just so thankful to be able to host the Destiny Truthcast with you each week and do what we do here, talking Destiny and talking with this amazing community.
You too, Souls. It was definitely fun to meet you and get to know you and get to know everybody at Bungie and all the people that we talked to on Twitter and everything else. All of our guests, some of our guests and some of the content creators and their perspectives. And a lot of the cool thing is that we didn't talk about was the lore and all the people that were like, oh yeah, this is this person and this is when this happens. And there was just a lot of like really cool stuff that we got to talk to people about. And so it's always an evolving thing. We'll just see what happens next.
Yep. And to the lore, where we will have a non on in one of the coming episodes, hopefully episode 51 or so. And so everyone that is reading on the forums, everyone that is listening on SoundCloud, Podbean, iTunes, watching on YouTube, just thank you again for the participation, the support, and again, we hope that we've been able to kind of convey this experience with you, and hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed getting to experience these things. So, Redwing Girl, I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I will see you next week. And everyone out there, have a great night.
Peace.